So, good evening everyone and welcome to this conversation between me, ATHENA FARROKHZAD, and GLORIA GERVITZ. Is this good sound-wise? Can you hear us?
Yeah.
Yes. Good. So, before we say anything further, we will read some poetry to you, and then this conversation will go on until 3 o'clock, so it's very, very short. But we'll try our best. And Gloria will read you in Spanish from Migraciones, and I will read in Swedish.
Well, I want to thank again everybody that made possible for me to be here. It's my 7th time in Sweden, so I feel, to be honest, very welcome, and I thank you all. And I will read in Spanish just a little bit. I think I will read a little more in Swedish. I will read in Spanish first so you hear a little fragment of the poem. We'll read from the end of the poem with, the way it was written originally, which is of course in Spanish, that it's my maternal language. Dice, toca, sientes cómo te desborda ese fluir, ese gozo, míralo, no se dice, es tú misma, tú en ti. Hablo de los pulsos, no es la luz, es tú en luz, el corazón en luz, luz disuelta en clorofila. ¿La oyes? Fluye, se inclina, dócil, húmeda, dice, ¿escuchas? Es tu respiración y lo que hubiese querido ser y más y más. No es que pueda explicar, pero esto soy yo, estos los días, la vida y ¿en qué parte de mí estoy? ¿A dónde? Y esta alegría casi azul como un lote baldío, parece un águila, un quetzal. ¡Ey! No te vayas, dice una voz dentro de mí. Quédate. Estoy. Me dejo estar. Oigo mi respiración, que es también la tuya. No sé a quién le hablo. El viaje en lo más solo necesita ser compartido. Y la luna donde se ahogó Lipo baja hasta el estanque y yo, que siempre soy otra y la misma, aquí, en este año de mi edad que son todos los años, aquí, en el final del verano, en esto que siento, alta, indómita, como una secuoya, como una yegua joven, súbita, impredecible, y en su vuelo la palabra, allí donde la luz se dobla. Atrévete, dame, come de mi mano, desbórdame, palabra de toda misericordia. ¿Vas a dejarme? Y si digo, es el alma, ¿digo algo?
Säger vidrör, känner du hur det översvämmar dig, detta flöde, denna fröjd? Se den kan inte utsägas, den är du själv, du i dig. Jag talar om dina pulsslag, det är inte ljuset, det är du i ljus, hjärtat i ljus. Ljus upplöst i klorofyll, hör du det? Hon flödar, böjer sig fogligt, fuktigt, säger, lyssnar du? Det är din anhämtning. och det hon hade velat vara och mer och mer. Inte för att jag kan förklara det, men det här är jag. Det här är dagarna, livet och i vilken del av mig finns jag? Var? Denna glädje nästan blå, som ett obrukat stycke jord. Den liknar en örn, en quetzalfågel. Hej, gå inte din väg, säger en röst inuti mig. Stanna. Jag låter mig finnas till. Jag hör min egen andning som också är din. Jag vet inte med vem jag talar. Resan i det mest ensamma måste delas. Och månen under vilken Li Po drunknade går ner mot fördämningen. Och jag som alltid är en annan och densamma. Här, vid denna min ålder som är alla åldrar. Här i värmen, i det sista av sommaren. I detta som jag känner. Högt, obetvingligt som ett jätteträd. Ett ungt sto på språng, oberäkneligt i sin flykt. Ordet där böjer det sig i ljuset. Kom närmare, ge mig, ät ur min hand. Översvämma mig, ord, med all din nåd. Kommer du att lämna mig? Och om jag säger att det är själen, säger jag då något? Var finns detta som jag har varit och som jag är? Var tog mitt liv vägen? Det levda. Var det som ännu inte levt? Och om jag skulle ha varit en annan, vore jag då samma främling? Jag har inga fler liv än detta som lever mig. Och jag det, i detta som jag är. Och i detta andra som jag också är. Och som jag inte vet vad det är. Bara mitt, ur mig, helheten av mitt liv. Och om jag visste, vad skulle jag då veta? All right, now we will talk to use this time as much as we can. So Gloria, you were born in 1943 in Mexico City.
Yes.
Yes. To a family of Jewish migrants from Eastern Europe.
Yes, but my father came to Mexico when he was 9 years old, and my mother was already born in Mexico City. It was my grandparents.
Yes, who migrated.
Exactly.
And now you live since a couple of years back in San Diego,
Yes.
in the US. So in 1976, 42, we've said, yes, years ago, you started working on this book, on this poem, which has since been your poetic life project. Migraciones, migrations, and since then, since 1976, you have edited, extended, rewritten and republished what was first quite a short poem, Shacharit, to a book that sort of deals with the major issues of poetry and life, mothers and daughters, life and death, bodies and sexuality, God, mysticism, religion, everything is here. And I think it also has this sort of quality and status of a Bible that says everything. But so this is, you've published this book over and over again in different versions, and it's a constant and migrating poetry, not only because it deals with migration as a theme, with sort of the image of dying on the other side of the sea, but also because of its forms, the way it operates on a formal level. And it was published 2009 in Sweden for the first time, Migrationer, translated by Ulf Eriksson and Magnus William Olsson, and it immediately became an extremely well-read and loved book within the poetry landscape in Sweden. I think there was a great desire and a longing for a book that was very directly existential, physical, and that dealt with all these issues in a beautiful and at the same time very simple way. And now there's a new translation out by Hanna Nordenhök, and it's a new translation of a new version, let's say. So to start with, do you want to say something about what has happened to the book since it was published the last time in Sweden, the last and first time?
Well, the book grew a lot. To my surprise, not quite recently, I had the most creative, I would say, stage in my life. I've been writing poetry really since 1970, but this started like Athena just said in 1976. I have to say I never ever imagined I was going to write, or I was starting what became, if not exactly a life project, but how can I say it? I love poetry so very much, and can almost say that poetry gave me also a life. I gave my life to poetry, I'll be honest, but poetry also gave me my life. And this new version is different than all the others because it took me a lifetime to realize many things. First, like I said, I had this very creative stage, and in 2 years I think I wrote more poetry than I had written like in 30 years. Of course, the 42 years of writing the poem doesn't mean that I was writing the poem almost every week during those 42 years. There were sometimes long periods of time that I didn't write anything. I almost felt, well, maybe I'm not going to write more poetry. But then it came back, and it took me time to start understanding that I was, not even that I was doing, that the parts that I was writing, because it was divided in parts, it was published sometimes in parts, like different poems. When I say poems, sort of fragments, big fragments. It took me a long time to start seeing that it was really one poem, one long poem. And in this new version, almost at the very end, they already had what they call the maquette or whatever, to go to the press. I suddenly realized that just like this, it was that the subtitles, the epigraphs that had each subtitle, by that time I think it already had 9 parts when I made this decision. I think it has 7 parts, yes, in the one published in 2009 here in Sweden. I realized that the poem didn't need any more, and I didn't also, that we didn't need all this like chapters. So I said, out with them. And then I also felt that the punctuation was also like disturbing the flow of the poem. So I felt like, especially in the first part, in the first parts, I used quite a lot in each verse, in each sentence, the capitals. And then I said, why? I mean, I don't think the poem doesn't need them. And I started feeling that the capitals were some sort of strange fear, because a capital is always like, it inspires you like respect or something. You know, you start with a point and then capital. And then I said, why? No. So I did all those changes. The only punctuation that it has is the question marks. Because those I really need. The poem.
Why? Why do you need the question marks?
Because the poem, and me, myself, of course, I'm full of questions, and the poem is full of questions. So those, of course, did stay. So I made those, I think they were quite big changes, because for the very first time, I mean, it took me, like we're just saying, 42 years to realize that I didn't need it all that, and that I had to let the poem just flow and let it go and let it be without anything, just almost.
But do you think what you're describing now, this creation of a fluidity without divisions, this taking away of the different chapters or sections, or what marks the sections rather, do you think that has to do with the fact that maybe it is also the last version, that there is a way of sort of creating a totality which is not divided, you know, where the entire poem after all these years, after these 42 years, is one, you know, where everything is held under one title, in one body?
Maybe I did. I think what you're saying, I thank you for it. Yes, maybe I did. I don't know. I've said other times that the poem was finished. I don't know if I can say it this time, because with poetry you never know. Who knows? Maybe the poem is not closed. I do know something. The beginning is the beginning. I mean, and the end will stay there. And the poem grew sort of almost like a pregnancy. It grew from the middle, sort of on the upper part. That's where it, in the middle, from the stomach. But
so this is intact, and this is intact, but this is.
I mean, it had little changes. Some things I just felt were not needed anymore, because when you're working with such a big body of just one long poem of poetry, there were certain things that maybe were not exactly what I would call really bad. Maybe they were not bad, but they were not adding anything to the poem. Perhaps the opposite.
But sometimes when I've heard you talk about this, what you have taken out in the latest version and also in the late versions, I think that what you mean, or what you speak about, what you've taken out are sort of the more prose-like things. Is that correct? Or what is more specific, more prose-like, more narrative, and what you sort of strive to and are sort of, you have a tendency towards the more general, more poetical, the more open sort of voice. Is that true? Is there
It is true. I suddenly saw, I was able to see after all these years, what Athena just said, that the parts that were not needed were more descriptivas in Spanish. The word in English, descriptives. Yes, and more narrative. And they were not really adding anything. In fact, some were almost explanations. I also saw that in some lines, the influence of this or other author that I had, that sometimes you have these influences also because of course you connect, you have a similar sensibility with those authors. I suddenly saw them very clearly, and I felt, sort of like, thank you, but I don't think I need
I don't need you anymore.
I don't need
thank
you.
you, but goodbye.
Maybe it sounds, I don't know what, maybe a little, but maybe snobbish, I don't know, but it's the truth. I just felt I didn't need them anymore. There was a little passage that it was very similar to Clarice Lispector. We have a sensibility that it's similar, and it was not Clarice, it was me. But it was too much Clarice, okay? And I saw it. So I took it out. I didn't need it anymore. So I think that's what happened in this last version. I left more what I consider the essence.
So I have another suggestion. Concerning this. Is it also the case that what you've taken out and edited away, we said earlier that they are the more sort of prose-like narrative parts, but is it also because the poem sort of tends to, in the newer parts, to sort of leave actual memories, actual bodies, and actual places. I mean, actual events that can be remembered by the eye, and becomes more interested in sort of memory itself, body itself, and in the presence. No?
The thing is, when I was writing it, and even in this editing, I never thought about it like that. I just knew it had to go like that. It was not. I work a lot with intuition, with intuition. So no, maybe if I would have thought, take this out because it's doing this or that, I couldn't have done it. I just felt it. Let's say I feel the poem. In that sense, now I feel a little orphan, I'll be honest, because the poem became more than a place, more than a house, almost a cocoon. And it's not there anymore. And it was a cocoon for both. I mean, I was in the poem, and the poem was in me and within me. And I felt sometimes very like protected by the poem. I will say something just to give an example. I had to have an eye operation that was quite traumatic. And of course I was very scared. And when they were putting me in the table ready to operate, and you know, they're putting this, so I was working in a very, very erotic part of the poem, and that's the way it put me to sleep while I was working in my mind, of course, a very erotic part of the poem. So see, the poem, I mean, it helps so much if you're very scared. It's much better to be in that erotic thing that I was.
In another kind of body.
In another body than where I actually was.
I can't believe we only have 5 minutes left because we just started. But I want to ask you something that has to do with bodies, because speaking of the title, migrations, and sort of this dying on the other side of the sea. Sometimes I think of the theme of sort of migration, minority, margins, I mean all these things, you know, writing from the periphery somehow, as an experience that aesthetically causes like a certain rupture or a worry of sorts within the triangle of body and language and place. Like what I want to say is that all writers, all poets who sort of write about migrations, for instance, somehow write about a rupture in the triangle of body, place, and language. I mean, the expectations of sort of the other people or the national state that this triangle should be very solid, whatever. What I want to say is that in the case of migrations, I think they're also, you can see this rupture as a plurality of bodies within the body, as a plurality of places within the place, as a plurality of languages. I mean specific languages, you know, Spanish, English, Yiddish, Farsi, many languages within the language. Do you agree?
I agree, but I didn't do it like thinking I'm going to do it. That's the way.
Okay, but let me put it like this. Why this plurality of places within places, or bodies within bodies? I mean, because the I in migrations is sort of, it's a populated I, you know. It's an I that has, you know, a lot of other women inside of it, you know, mothers and grandmothers and.
Because I think there are so many parts of ourselves, because I do think that we're constantly migrating inside ourselves, and we don't know exactly where we're leading. Like, for example, you start getting old, and you're a little girl in being old because you don't have the experience of being old until you're there and you start. So I guess all this has to do with it. And of course there is actual migrations, physical migrations from people, when I say people, of all this voices or the voice that leads the poem, because I think there's a voice that's leading the poem. But it's again, it's like ourselves. There, isn't it? We all have so many selves in ourselves. And we are different with different people and different in different stages in our lives. And in that sense, probably it has to do with my own life that has had many stages. Sometimes I feel there has been many me's, many Glorias. Sometimes I feel that the only thing that connects them is that it was me that I've lived them, but some are so very different, one from the other. So I think it's all that had to do. The only thing I can say is I didn't know this was going to be the result, or I didn't know exactly where this was going. I just went with it.
Yes. And with those words, we thank you for listening to us.